Guys, welcome back. This is a very weird time to be alive. Right now, we are in the midst of an Israel-Hamas war. And one part of me actually thought, should we rather make a video on this and speak out against all the misconceptions and all the ideologies that surface and all the biases that surface? But I was encouraged and reminded that Jesus said to Satan in the desert when he was tempted that man will not live by bread alone. Our survival is linked, our very survival is linked to the Word of God. So with that courage, I'm going to go ahead and dig into Genesis 1 verse 2. Now there's a little joke going around saying, of all positions in a match, the worst position is to come second because of everybody that lost. You were first. This, however, is not the case with Genesis 1 verse 2. I think together with Genesis 1 verse 1. And by the way, the first verse in Genesis is only a 7-letter word. I haven't actually counted the Hebrew letters in verse 2, but it's significantly more. But together with verse 1, the second verse of Genesis actually introduces the theme of divine creation and the primordial state of the world, of the earth, before God's creative interventions. So together with verse 1, verse 2 forms an enormously important, almost setting the stage for what is about to happen. And I remind you that in Genesis 1 verse 1, we made the comment that in Hebrew thinking, very often a statement is made and then the statement is unpacked. And this remains true for verse 2, as we will see right now. But the important thing is, if we're going to study the Bible verse by verse, it would be really difficult to make 3 videos on every verse because we'll never get through one single chapter ever. And with myself being almost a one-man funded project, and by the way, if you feel moved to support this ministry, please reach out to us. I will leave a PayPal address in the description, but I can tell you it takes about a full day out of my time to make a video like this. And you go, how does it work? Well, it's a setup, it's preparation, it's the recording, it's editing out all the ums and ahs and you get the point. And then also to make sense of all of this, it just takes time. So if you feel moved, if you feel prompted by the Spirit to invest in this ministry, remember, it's not for me. I'm merely volunteering my time. And at the time of the making of this video, the subscribers on this channel had been almost 600. It's not a lot, I know, but also Hebrew is not poppy, is it right? This is my statement. We're going to try to do one video on Genesis 1 verse 2. And this means I'm going to move fast through the language. Your job is, if something is unclear, pause, re-listen, write, read, do your thing. Remember, from this point onwards, I'm going to assume that you sit with a pencil, a little piece of paper that you can write down. Keep practicing the writing of the letters. Download yourself an interlinear Bible and make sure that you have a Strong's Concordance, whether online or in a printed form. Without these, it's going to be really tricky to get a grip on the language. And then the last point, and I'm not going to overstress that, we have no time to dig into the technicalities of the language too deeply. So I'm going to make sweeping statements, which hopefully in the next season, we will get into more technical detail. So bear with us as I kind of move fast over the syntax, the language. And then also, as we go, I will provide theological commentary. And remember, analyzing the text and giving it an interpretation. And as the Jewish people call that, a midrash. Remember, this is my opinion. I am not telling you what you should hear. I want to help you read and hear the text for yourself. And then we all depend on the Spirit of Yahweh to help us interpret, help us understand what He's conveying. And last point, every time that you read a passage, every year that you go around the circle, the Jewish people do a weekly parashah where they literally read through the entire Torah in a full year. That I find is a beautiful discipline. So I would encourage you, what we do here is but a layer. Let's dig into it. I'm reading from the scriptures. In the beginning, Elohim, God, created the heavens and the earth, verse 1, and then verse 2, and the earth came to be formless and empty, and darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of Elohim was moving on the face of the waters. Just going to read verse 2 again. And the earth came to be formless and empty, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And then it says, and the Spirit of Elohim was moving on the face of the waters. Let's look at this in Hebrew and break it down into parts of speech, find the root words, and see what's going on in the language. I've got it in table form in front of me, but for now, let me just print the Hebrew. V'ha'aretz hayetah tohu va'vohu, v'choshekh al panei tehum, v'ruach Elohim merachefet al panei hamayim. Again, v'ha'aretz hayetah tohu va'vohu, v'choshekh al panei tehum, v'ruach Elohim merachefet al panei hamayim. Let's put this into a table, and then this table is quite long, so I'm probably going to have to do this into a split screen. Let's look at the first word, va'aretz. I'm going to break it into a prefix v, and then ha'aretz. The v is a prefix conjunction, meaning and. A vav is a connection, and therefore it always represents the word and in the beginning of a word. Va'aretz. The word ha'aretz means the earth, and the ha part is always the definite article in English, the, so it says, and the earth. Very important, aretz is a feminine word, so it's a single feminine word, and the earth, meaning the earth as a female concept. And by the way, from a theological point of view, is this the reason why they talk about Mother Earth? I don't know. It may be. But in Hebrew thinking, the earth is a female concept. And then it says HAYETAH. Now the word HAYETAH is the feminine verb. The male version of that is just HAYAH. HAYETAH means she existed or she was. And the reason why in Hebrew you have to say she was is because the earth is feminine. So and the earth, she existed or she was. And then there's beautiful poetry, TOHU VA'VOHU. TOHU is a noun, masculine singular word, and it means to be without form. Something that has no definition. Formless is very often the word. And the earth, she existed formless. V'ha'aretz hayetah tohu, and then vavohu. You see that tohu vavohu as Hebrew poetry, almost a Hebrew musical rhythm built into it. Tohu vavohu, and va again is the conjunction to mean and then the word vohu is another singular masculine noun, and this word means emptiness. Va'aretz hayetah tohu vavohu, and then v'choshekh al panei tehum. Again the conjunction vav meaning and then the word choshekh, again a noun, again singular masculine. This word choshekh is the word for darkness. What exactly is darkness in Hebrew? This gets established later in Genesis. We have to kind of read to verse 14 to understand why it is important that at this point, when it speaks about emptiness, darkness, formless chaos, that darkness gets introduced, because this becomes a theme throughout the text. It becomes a juxtaposition for who God is, for what God does in the earth, what his mission is, what his intentions are. Va'aretz hayetah tohu vavohu v'choshekh, okay, and darkness. And then al panei, al is the preposition that means on or upon. Al panei, and the word panei, very interesting, is a masculine plural noun. Is there a singular form of that? Nowhere in the text. The word for face in Hebrew, interesting, is always in the plural state. Very much in the same philosophical sense as why God always refers to himself, or most of the time, to Elohim and not to Eloah. The reason why the word panei is always in the plural, in other words, upon faces, not upon the face of the deep. Faces is because in Hebrew understanding, your face changes all the time. Although you're recognizable, your expressions change. You carry on your face literally what's going on inside of you. So it's the same. It says, and darkness, al panei, upon or over the faces of, and then the word tahum is again a noun, singular masculine noun, and a good translation of that would be the abyss. Some translations say the deep, but this is really the word for the abyss. There's a lot going on. If I just look at it, tohu is formlessness, vohu is emptiness, choshekh is darkness, tahum is abyss. By the way, the word tohu and the word tahum share a root word taha, which basically is emptiness. So there is also a theme there. Something about God is setting a stage here. After he said he's going to create the heavens and the earth out of nothing, out of a point of reference in space and time, he's now telling us stuff are formless and void, and it's really chaotic, actually, really. And then it goes on to say, V'ruach Elohim, and again, Vav conjunction. Ruach is the female noun meaning wind, breath, or spirit. But the reason why it's better to go with wind or breath is because in Hebrew thinking, the word spirit is a non-concrete idea, and therefore in Hebrew thinking, it's better to say the breath of. And Ruach V'ruach Elohim, so, and now you can read it. It doesn't say the Ruach, it says, and a wind of Elohim. In Hebrew, when you put two nouns consecutively, they're in a possessive state. And literally in English, you need to put an of before. So it's say, Peter's car would be the car of Peter. Here, Ruach Elohim would be a wind or a breath of Elohim. And then a most interesting sentence completes, Merachefet al panei hamayim. So we get the word panei again. Merachefet is a participle form. And the participle form, to explain that in English, if I say I run, that's the normal verb. If I say I'm running, that's the participle form. But I can't say I running. I can say I am running. Or I can say I am in a state of running. So, merachefet comes from the verbal form rachav. The participle form merachefet means a hovering, a brooding. It's almost the image of a bird or an eagle keeping its little ones under its wings. So here it says, and a wind or a breath of Elohim brooding. And then al panei again, upon faces, because it changes all the time. And then it ends off with hamayim. Ha is the definite article again, and mayim is the plural noun, the plural masculine noun, to mean water. So here you have the earth, she existed, formless and empty, and darkness upon the faces of the abyss, upon the faces of the deep. And a wind of Elohim, v'ruach Elohim, merachefet. Normally the translations say, and the breath of God or the Spirit of God hovered upon the faces of the waters. But really, what is written there? And the Spirit of God, a hovering, a Spirit of God, a hovering upon faces of the waters. Here in Genesis 1 verse 2, the scripture is telling us, in the beginning, where time started, God began to do something. It can also make reference to, in the beginning, with the first one, with Reshit, which has a possible messianic implication. But then it goes on into verse 2 and to say, okay, but now we tell you more about the earth. We tell you more about the earth and the waters. It was undefined. And darkness, and by the way, we'll get to darkness. We'll get to CHOSHEKH. What exactly is going on? Is CHOSHEKH, is darkness in contrast with light? Yes. In verse 14, it makes it extremely clear that darkness is in contrast with the light. And there are reasons for that. And it gets incredible messianic implications later on. But anyway, it says emptiness, chaoticness, darkness, the depth, the deep, the abyss. But then it says, over this wild, uncharted territory, the breath of God is a hovering, is a brooding upon the waters. There's something going on. It's as if God says, I have a plan. I'm going to do something here. Va'aretz HAYETAH TOHU VA'VOHU v'CHOSHEKH al panei tehom v'ruach Elohim merachefet al panei hamayim. And let's give this a mechanical translation, and then we wrap it for today. Va'aretz, and the earth, HAYETAH, she existed. TOHU VA'VOHU, formless and void. VaChoshekh, and darkness, al panei tehom, upon faces of an abyss. V'ruach Elohim, and a wind of God, or a breath of God. Merachefet al panei hamayim, a brooding upon faces of the waters. Isn't that beautiful? Until next time, take care.